If I was part of the action figure industrial complex, I'd waltz right up to John Hasbro and tell him, what we need is more wacky repaints. And I'm serious. Dead serious. I feel like between the pursuit of source material accuracy and action figures becoming a quote-unquote serious adult collectible, we've kind of forgotten about the fun factor. If you've watched my channel long enough, you know I'm a huge proponent for visually dynamic action figures and decos. There's a reason why my collection has Euro Trash G1, G2, and Diaclone figures. Sure, Age of the Prime's Bruticus is going to be much more accurate to the Sunbow character model, but it's no, G2 Bruticus. Say what you will about the guy, G2 Bruticus is bright, bold, and most importantly, unforgettable. As those wacky colors weren't chosen to be accurate to any kind of comic book or cartoon, they were made to be bombastic and eye-catching, and Hasbro wouldn't be brave enough to do something that ostentatious and release it at retail today. In part, this is why I love JoJo's Bizarre Adventure so much. Not only are the character designs bold, but the toy line created by Medicos offers tons of different colorways for the characters, even if they are hard-to-find convention exclusives. Now, besides JoJo, the other Joe I collect is G.I. Joe. Now, considering the first few years of the toy line are based off of pulp militaria, the figures, while dynamic, aren't necessarily colorfully bombastic. The major exception, of course, being the ranks of Cobra, consisting of bright blues, bright reds, purples, and blacks. However, by the late 80s and early 90s, all of the figures, Joes and Cobras, would become a lot more visually dynamic and neon, much to the chagrin of G.I. Joe fans. Now, personally speaking, I think there are some winners in this era. I like the Toxo Viper especially, I'll never shut up about that guy. And believe me, I understand why some Joe collectors dislike them, I just appreciate how ostentatious these figures are. And in addition to the new Neon Troopers, we'd also see some repaints of old school favorites, and these would come in the form of Tiger Force, Python Patrol, and Night Force. Now, to be fair to your serious, clean-cut, po-faced, only for procreation G.I. Joe collector, these decos aren't always winners. Admittedly, Tiger Force Tripwire is far weaker compared to his original 1983 release, and both are way weaker than his cherry red Listen and Fun release. However, even the grumpiest of G.I. Joe collectors can admit there's some pretty badass decos in here. Tiger Force Outback, of course, being the MVP. But beyond this, the original G.I. Joe toy line didn't go too crazy with their redecos. That is, until now. Released in the 44th year of the Cobra G.I. Joe conflict, Super 7 lights up shelves with the Glow Patrol. 3 classic O-ring Cobras with glow-in-the-dark uniforms. And if you like your action figures neon, then be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Ring that bell for notifications because here at PDX Toy Collective, my Joes, Cobras, and Transformers light up like a nuclear super fun site.
I'll field that question. A lifetime of working in a nuclear power plant has given me a healthy green glow. Left me as impotent as a Nevada boxing commissioner.
Now, if you're familiar with Super 7, then you're familiar with their reaction figure assortment. 5-point of articulation, 3 3/4-inch figures inspired by Kenner Star Wars. And they have tons of different TV, movie, and music licenses. Personally speaking, I like these figures a lot, and you've probably noticed a few in the background of my videos. There are some collectors that just malign these as being the equivalent of Funko Pops, and I couldn't disagree more. There's actually care and effort put into these toys, and there are a lot of figures that are really cool that wouldn't have been made otherwise. I don't see Hasbro going for the Metropolis license anytime soon. Now that said, I did understand some collectors' trepidation when it was announced Super 7 would be producing G.I. Joe figures. Reaction figures, while cool and charismatic, are very much derived from the classic 5POA style of engineering popularized by Kenner Star Wars and Fisher-Price's Adventure People, whereas the original Hasbro A Real American Hero toy line was defined by that O-ring engineering that gave them superior articulation. However, when you start looking at the market at this time, you realize that Joe was in a little bit of a licensing tug-of-war. While Super 7 launched its 5POA Reaction Joes, Hasbro was trying to get an old-school O-ring toy line off the ground. We saw a couple of gift sets released in addition to the pack-in figures with the Transformer crossover toys, but none of these really picked up any steam. And it seems like at some point, Hasbro just threw up their hands and told them, all right, Super 7, if you're so smart, you figure it out. And you know what? They knocked it out of the park with Reaction Plus. These are new O-ring figures based off the Marvel Comics and Sunbow cartoon series. Obviously, there are the usual suspects, Cobra Commander, Snake Eyes, Duke, but there are also figures that we never got in the vintage era. like Big Lob, Motley Crue Zartan, and Pythona. There are also fun repaints, like new Tiger Force editions, Python Patrol, and the new Glow Patrol. Shown off at Joe Fest, the Cobra team consists of good old Cobra Commander, the Battle Android Trooper, and the Cobra Emperor Serpentor, all decked out with blue-on-blue glow-in-the-dark uniforms. And you know what? As ridiculous as the idea of glow-in-the-dark Joes are, I don't care. I love it. More colorways, the better, in my opinion. Now let's start off with my boy in blue, Cobra Commander. Technically speaking, he is the least different from his original release, considering he changed from a blue suit to a blue suit. He's just gonna roll up on Destro and be like, which should I wear? The blue suit with the blue shirt, or the blue shirt with the blue suit? It's basic, but I like it, especially the cold silver Cobra logo on his chest. And if this figure wasn't made of glow-in-the-dark plastic, I'd say the fact that he's wearing a baby blue suit means that Cobra Commander is in his summer wear.
Well, I need a window seat because this flower is wilting.
Oh, Lord. You've probably also noticed that this Cobra Commander is much different than the original 82 and 83 release. That's because it's not based on the card art, the figure, or the Marvel Comics counterpart. Instead, it's based on the Sunbow Productions character model, where he's a lot thinner and a little more effete. I will say, because of the thinner proportions and more delicate sculpt work, this figure, in addition to some of the other Reaction Plus figures, don't exactly feel at home with the original 1980s Joes. Instead, they do remind me a little bit of the late 70s, early 80s O-ring Mego figures from their various TV and movie licenses like The Black Hole, Chips, and Buck Rogers. By no means is that a bad thing, it's just noticeable. By no means is this figure breaking the mold or reinventing the wheel, but it is a really fun and interesting colorway to add to a Cobra Commander focus collection, which I have. But what is a Cobra Commander without troops to, well, command? And in this case, the Glow Patrol includes one army builder, the Cobra Battle Android Trooper, or Cobra B.A.T for short. I think you'd be pretty hard-pressed to find a G.I. Joe fan who'd disagree with the Bat being considered not only one of the best character designs in all of G.I. Joe, but one of the best figures in the entirety of G.I. Joe. And that still carries over here. Even 40 years later, the Cobra B.A.T is an amazing design. It's one of the best robot designs that Hasbro ever cooked up for G.I. Joe. They tried with Overkill and the Bat too, but it just never worked. And Super 7 does a great job of reinventing the Bat for the modern age with contemporary sculpt and detail work. All of the classic elements are there and picked out with fine detail. The most notable point of sculpt work being the chest. Now, the original 1986 Cobra B.A.T had a lenticular sticker for its chest detail to show off all the mechanical circuitry, servos, pipes, and pistons that occupy the Bat's innards. It looks very much like those horrible hacking puzzles from BioShock. I hate them. Now, Super 7 took a lot of that detail and actually sculpted it out in plastic, meaning that it is all textured. That's not to say the original sticker wasn't super cool. It was. It's just really fun to see all of that detail realized in full 3D sculpting. Now, Super 7's Cobra B.A.T does carry over the original play pattern from the 86 figure. You can detach one of the hands and replace it with one of the many tool attachments. You have a flamethrower, this nebulous drill thing that might be a laser, and then, of course, a grabby claw. But Super 7 actually improves the play pattern of the Cobra B.A.T. Not only can you replace one hand, you can replace both hands. And on top of that, considering it's just a simple peg and port system, that means both hands actually have a swivel joint, meaning not only does he have improved articulation, he can actually hold the included rifle more naturally. So not only is it a great figure, but it's also a great army builder. Granted, a group of Dayglow Bats would be pretty wild to see, but it doesn't matter how neon they are, they're still here to wreck up the place.
The killbots have a preset kill limit. Knowing their weakness, I sent wave after wave of my own men at them until they reached their limit and shut down. Kif, show them the medal I won.
And finally, there is Cobra Commander's eternal rival. No, not Duke, not Flint, not Destro, but Serpentor, the Cobra Emperor. I haven't really talked about Serpentor much on this channel because I have very mixed feelings on him, to be honest. Serpentor is a really fun design. I like the original figure a lot, but I'm not a huge fan of the character. Well, maybe not the character so much as his implementation. Look, the idea of Dr. Mindbender taking the DNA of history's greatest leaders and in just 7 days making you a man is pretty fun. It's pretty camp and it's pretty goofy, and I do like it. But I don't necessarily like the dynamic that he introduces to the team, you know? He just kind of shows up, yells at everybody, and says he's the new leader, and Cobra Commander's just there like, I guess I'm just gonna hang out now, because why not? I don't have anything better to do. But I do like the way Serpentor's personality juxtaposes Cobra Commander. Cobra Commander's a weird, high-strung dude who's very sly and very craven.
I will fly to the nearest island and send help when I arrive.
You don't mean you'd leave two defenseless women to fend for themselves?
Yes. You unmanly peasant!
Whereas Serpentor is just fucking crazy. The dude operates at 11 on full blast at any given time. He's loud and bold and brash and actually inspires the Cobra Troopers by being a larger-than-life figure. He's like a Greek hero. Not in the respect that he does heroic deeds, but he does great deeds. Serpentor is crazy enough to think he could take on the entire world himself and win, and you know what? With that kind of moxie, he just might. Serpentor will literally lead the charge and just bum rush G.I. Joe, wrestle someone to the ground and assert dominance right then and there, okay? The thing is when they were making Serpentor, the genetic soup of Serpentor, they didn't just combine the DNA of Alexander the Great and Attila the Hun and Julius Caesar. They also spliced in some Sergeant Slaughter. They stole his precious DNA and made Serpentor with it. And I think that's why he's crazy, because he really does act like a wrestling heel more than like a military leader. Like I said, I'm mixed on Serpentor. There are some aspects that I appreciate and some that I don't. And honestly, the Glow Patrol Serpentor isn't that much different in my opinion. There are some things I do like. Blue is my favorite color, but it's definitely not Serpentor's color. He works a lot better with the green and gold. While the blue's fun, it just doesn't really jive well with Serpentor's design. His outfit is very ceremonial, almost Mesoamerican, and it works well with earth tones and gem colors. That said, it doesn't take away from the impressive sculpt work on display here. Much like the Cobra B.A.T, they pick out a lot of the details that are emphasized in the Sunbow cartoon, and they just bring them up to a higher fidelity, for lack of a better term. This is seen best not only in the headdress and cowl, but also the addition of the shoulder snakes. The shoulder snakes are weird. The original 1986 toy did have them sculpted on as kind of like collar detail, and they're a little shallow, whereas both the Sunbow cartoon and by extension the Super 7 toy just have his snake at full mast, ready for battle. I do kind of wish that Super 7 included his hard snake spear that he used to put Duke in a coma, phrasing, but we do get a couple of accessories. He includes a little ceremonial dagger, very referential to the original toy, and it does reinforce the Mesoamerican themes. I could see Serpentor at the top of a pyramid, sacrificing some Joe to the Cobra gods with this. And then he also includes a cape, a blue velvet cape. Oh no, they threw Dennis Hopper's DNA into the Serpentor mix.
You receive a love letter from me, you're fucked forever!
Jesus, Serpentor is crazy enough as it is. I don't need to know how intense he is when he gets his blue velvet on. The cape's a nice addition, considering that the original Serpentor did include a cape, and it is one of the most fragile accessories in the entirety of the G.I. Joe toy line. Hell, it might be one of the most fragile accessories ever in any toy line. That thing might as well be made of wet tissue paper. That's how fragile it is. All right, I've buried the lead long enough. All three of these figures are made almost entirely of bright blue, luminescent, glow-in-the-dark plastic. And now it's time to see how the Glow Patrol lights up the night. Now it's dark, and it's a dark time for Cobra to do their dark business. And we get to see how neon this blue is. But it is a little bit deceiving. Maybe I've got an odd batch of figures here, but to the naked eye, these figures don't really glow in the dark. They have a little bit of like a dull radiance to them. However, on camera, they are bright and bold, and maybe this is because of the type of plastic used for these figures. Super 7 has a really proud tradition of doing glow-in-the-dark figures, and these are amazing. It's all referential to the original Remco Mini Monsters, a cult classic toy line from the 80s that was all Universal Monster themed. And not only did they have a wave of regular action figures that were cool, but they had a wave of glow-in-the-dark action figures. 4 of the 6 figures, Dracula, Frankenstein, Phantom of the Opera, and the Wolfman, were accented with glow-in-the-dark paint. However, the last 2 figures, the Mummy and the Creature from the Black Lagoon, were made almost entirely of glow-in-the-dark plastic. And when Super 7 made colorways inspired by the glow-in-the-dark Remco Mini Monsters, their reaction figures were cast almost entirely of glow-in-the-dark plastic, much like the Creature from the Black Lagoon and the Mummy. And I think there's a possibility the difference in the chemical composition of the plastics used for the reaction figures versus Reaction Plus is what causes this difference in glow, for lack of a better term. And I do have a few of Super 7's glow-in-the-dark reaction figures in my collection. My favorite is the glow-in-the-dark Maria from Metropolis. I love the shade of orangey red that they chose for the glow-in-the-dark plastic. It almost makes her look like a cast iron stove that's on fire or overheated piece of metal. It's really cool, and it looks great to both the naked eye and on film. So I'm not sure what happened with the Glow Patrol here. Either way, I do like them. I do kind of like that they're a unified team of blue baddies. I think they look a lot better than the G.I. Joe equivalent. Not to say that they're bad, it's just the green makes them look like Ho Chi Minh G.I. Joe, and I don't want that. I'm a real American, goddammit. And that's why Cobras got my vote this election. Wait, no, that's bad. Okay, I kind of lost the beat there. But the point is I like the Glow Patrol. They're fun, they're charismatic, they're a little goofy, but it adds to the charm, you know? It's fun. These were made with the intention of being interesting and fun. You know, like toys should be. How silly. And, you know, even if the glow-in-the-dark feature doesn't work that great, it works well enough on film, which is fine by me. I do toy photography. I hope Super 7 keeps expanding beyond this point. Obviously, I want more flamboyant color waves. I mean, give me as many Cobra Commanders as you got. I want a full wardrobe's worth by the end of the series. But I also want more fun, dynamic figures, and it seems like Super 7 will keep delivering. There is a new Ninja Force subset that Super 7's coming out with. A new design for Ninja Force Snake Eyes, and an entirely original design for Ninja Force Cobra Commander. And while Ninja Force isn't necessarily my favorite, I'm kind of astounded by these. I really want them. They look like they're part of a lost 1995 wave that would have paired well with that canceled Baroness version 2. So I'm looking forward to Super 7's offerings. Obviously, they're doing more Marvel Comics inspired figures, more Sunbow inspired figures, but I'm really excited for the prospect of new G.I. Joes that kind of continue where the original toy line left off. They're dynamic, they're interesting, they're fun, you know, what toys should be.